In these tutorials, I'll demonstrate how to use the Cyclocross Secretary template. This is an Excel workbook that was originally created by me and is enhanced with some macro development by Chris Constantino. The template is designed to be a tool for you to use to get your job done a little bit more efficiently and accurately without having to rely on extra resources, work a little bit faster. However, you still need to understand how to do the job without the template, and you should have gone through all three of the previous parts of the classroom in order to understand that work. The workbook is available through the USA Cycling Technical Director. I update it annually for the champion information. Please consider this to be an advanced tool to help you with your job as secretary. It's not a requirement that you have this spreadsheet or that you use it. You still need to be able to manage the race registration information and results without this spreadsheet. Prior to reviewing the rest of this tutorial, please download the template from the classroom files that are available and follow along as we go through the process. You can pause, go backward or forward to find various sections of this instructional video. Pre-race covers the preparation that must be done prior to race day. It's quite extensive. The secretary has a lot of work to do before the racing even begins. Before beginning, download the files in this section. When you open the template, enable the macros. You will need to use one workbook for every race category at the event. To begin with, open the workbook and save as or save a copy to a new file in the race folder that you created on your computer. I usually create a file folder specifically for the race named for that particular race, and then another folder for Saturday's and Sunday's race, for example, if there's more than one day of racing. Save the file of the race category and the event name as an Excel macro-enabled workbook. For example, ME supercross.xlsm. Here I'm looking at the version of the Cyclocross Secretary template version for 2022, version 2.03. The first information tab contains basic instructions on how to use the workbook, but it's not really updated very often as progress is made on the worksheet. So your best bet is to learn how to use the workbook, become familiar with it. This is more of a guide so that you can see just how things are done. At the bottom of the first page, there is a reset button that clears everything out of the spreadsheet except for the pit box information. Moving on to the headers tab. This is where all of the information is transferred to the other sheets. This is a simple way of setting up all of your files in each of the spreadsheets without having to put in fancy headers and footers on every single sheet. It does it for you automatically. Some of the information transfers data to other sheets, as you'll see as I go through this. To start with, we'll go through the year for the Worlds. You can see that when you click on each of these boxes under value, there are going to be some little guide comment boxes that pop up and help describe exactly what it is that you're inputting, so hopefully you won't have to refer back to this video. Year is the year for the Worlds. Generally, it's going to be the following year. In this case, 2023 is written in as the default. I do try to update this every year as well. The year for Worlds is also used to calculate the age for the cyclocross riders for the current season. The event name, city, state, province, and nation are pretty much all self-explanatory. The event date is for the USA Cycling upload, and it should be entered in as month, day, and year with a 2-digit year as we have here. The PCP, President of the Commissaries Panel, we list with all uppercase last name first and then proper case for the first name. Same for you, the race secretary. last name first in uppercase, and then the proper case for your first name. The workbook category completes on all the headers on all of the worksheets so that you're sure which workbook you have open and are working on. Please do not change any of the tab names. If you do, it's going to break the macros. So you'll see under here we have Men Elite, Women Elite, Men U23, Women U23, which is rarely used unless it's possibly a continental championship or a national championship, Men Junior, and Women Junior. Race category, you'll choose from the drop-down list. Your selections are all pretty much UCI categories with the exception of USA National Championship, USA NCX, which is cross country for mountain biking, and UCI XCO, which is also a mountain biking category for UCI races. UCI CC is Continental Championship. The race director name should be entered in proper case for the first name, followed by the last name in uppercase. The course lead-in distance is the distance from the starting grid to the finish line. It's going to change your average speed a little bit. The course length is anywhere from 2.5K to 3.5K. Down to the thousandths is allowed here. Anything more than 3.5 or less than 2.5, it won't accept because those are the required course lengths for UCI courses. Total number of laps, you're going to have to enter this after the race is done or after you know how many laps the particular race is. Sometimes you can get that information just by listening to the radio during the race. This total laps is going to help calculate the average speed of the race based on the course lead-in distance and the total time of the race. The USA Cycling permit number always starts with the 4-digit year, a dash, and then 4 numbers for the permit number. That's going to transfer to the USA Cycling upload sheet. The UCI competition code, or CC, has a CP in the name and is followed by 4 digits. You'll have to get that from the president of the commissaires panel. The event code, or EC, has the letters EV in it and followed by 4 numbers. To import the header graphic, simply click on Import Header Graphic. I have a couple of examples that I've set up here in my Cross Secretary folder. Click on the header file. You can double click, it'll import it. This is from the Pan Am Championships. You'll notice though that if I go to picture format, my height is more than the 1.2 inches. So I need to reduce this height to something that's less than 1.2 or less. I'm going to just change it to 1.2. And I want to leave my relationship there in place. So that changes the dimensions. Then same thing for importing a footer graphic. I just named mine a same location footer example. You'll see that this one's really quite long, but if I go to the picture format, picture format, 0.81, it's too tall, so 0.75 for the maximum height. It still is too wide for the page though. Maximum width is going to be the width of your normal page, which is going to be about 7 inches, which reduces the height of that to 1/2 inch tall. That's fine. Once you have everything complete on the headers tab, you want to update the report titles. I need to make sure that this is actually being saved. Copy into my race file. And then you'll go to update report titles, and the titles are finished updating. Once you have everything correctly input into your spreadsheet on the header tab, you're going to want to first save your file. I have autosave on, so it saved it to my location. And then save one file for each race that you do. So file, save a copy. And if this were to be my Women Elite Saturday, C1. Save it into your race file, and then change the men elite to women elite. Whatever your race date happens to be, you're going to want to change that. Most of the other information is going to stay the same. This is a C1 day, so change that. If you happen to know the lead-in, you can have that changed. That should probably stay the same, and the course length will probably stay the same. However, the UCI, I believe it's the event code, is separate for each individual race. So you want to update that. The USA Cycling permit number is probably the same for both days of racing. But like I said, you want to make sure that the date is updated correctly so that it adds to the USA Cycling upload file as it should. Or update the report titles again in the new file. Then save a copy for every single one of the races you're happening to do. So if it's the men elite for Saturday C1, just save it that way. And you just have a few things to change. The men elite, men elite. Update the report titles, and so on for each individual race. Moving on to the next tab, the ranking tab. There are some instructions here where you can find the current downloads. You need to find the rankings here. Just copy, go to Safari, and paste that link in. That should take you directly to the Cyclocross rankings page at this time. This is one of the things that if the UCI website changes, we may have to do some updates. Uses cookies, accept all. Now you'll notice that it comes up to Cyclocross and the rankings are selected here, but I don't see any rankings. You're going to have to page down a bit. There's the rankings. There is a kind of a quirky thing that the UCI has built in to protect the information of the riders. You go to the individual ranking for the category selected. In this case, I want Men Elite for 2022. You can import past years, but we want Men Elite. The race type is just all as what you can select for cyclocross. You need to right-click on individual rankings, open that in a new tab. That'll bring up the individual rankings. You want to double check that your season is correct, in this case 2022, and the most recent rankings. You can take a look at older rankings if you want to, but we want to make sure we always have the most recent rankings. Rankings are updated on the Tuesday of each week following the first couple of World Cups in the US in every season. Of course, that date when they do the first update may change from time to time. Check with the PCP, but if you always download the most recent rankings on Tuesday or later, you're going to be safe. So we've clicked on that. This will download the rankings. You go up to Export Rankings in the upper right-hand corner. It allows you to export to an Excel file, which you will save it into your race file. I usually set up a separate new folder that's entitled Rankings, just so I have all the rankings in one place and it's not polluting all my other files. It's easy to find. Because this is Men Elite, I need to change the name of the file to Men Elite. Otherwise, everything's going to be imported on the same name and you're going to get confused. This way you know exactly which file you want to import. Save that to your rankings file, and then we can go back to our workbook. In our workbook, you just click on Import UCI Rankings and click on the folder where it's stored, click on the file that you want. You can double click or click on Choose, either way. It imports rather quickly, and you'll see it puts everything in the correct columns. Team code is something that will be changing from year to year. If a rider is on a UCI cyclocross team, that's where it should have a code showing up. Moving on to the next tab, our registration file. You'll notice it already says Men Elite. That's been transferred from my header tab. First thing it's going to ask you to do is import the bike reg information. There's actually two ways that you can do things here. You can either trust the macro is going to work, or you can copy and paste data only into the gray shaded cells. The only thing you want to import if you copy and paste data, you want to paste the values, not the data itself, but the value of the data. Possibly BIB, the USA Cycling License, UCI ID. The rider's age is okay to paste in here. You do need an age. It is not a formula. As you can see up here, I have nothing in my formula bar. You do need men or women, M or W. That's all that UCI will take, I believe. The last name and the first name. This last name and first name column, anything shaded in blue, do not overwrite because those are, as you can see, formulas up here in the formula bar. The team name, that's the full team name as the rider wants it. This is a field that can be changed for the cyclocross season. A lot of riders have different cyclocross teams than they do road teams or track teams. The team code is not technically used for cyclocross for the most part, but we do have some pro teams where that team code should be imported. I believe that this uploads automatically based on the rider's information. The category is okay to have it. It's good to import it from your data just to make sure that the rider is in the proper category. For women, they can be up to category 3. For men, it should be category 1 or 2 for cyclocross racing UCI. Juniors can be any race category. The nation code is, again, a formula that you don't want to overwrite until all of your data has been imported and you're verifying things. You can change what is brought in automatically when you look at a rider's license. Just to verify that it's there. It does have to be there for the UCI data ride upload. Moving farther to the right, you'll notice I have a scroll bar locking in place here so that you can always see what's over here on the on the left, the bib for the rider and the start order. The pit name is something you'll be typing in on confirmation of riders, as is the pit licensee number. The box number, again, is a blue shaded box. I'll explain where that comes from at a later point in this video, but do not overwrite pit box. Whether you get the bike reg downloads from the race director directly or whether they give you permission to download from bike reg, you're going to need certain fields for the spreadsheet to work properly. Of those fields, you need the bib, and that'll be probably blank. The unique license number, USA Cycling or UCI, that will download the USA Cycling license, and if there is none, then the UCI ID. The USA Cycling license status, so that you know whether they have a valid license or not. The UCI code, their age on the upcoming year, as you've entered it on the headers tab of your template for the cyclocross age. The rider's gender. The last name, either in uppercase or in proper case, the first name, the rider's team, their country, the category they've entered or the merchandise ordered. The macros in the template will use identifiers in these fields to import only the data that matches your header files. The USA Cycling category for cross, you want to verify that they qualify for the UCI racing per USA Cycling guidelines. The rider's date of birth for verification purposes, the waiver consent so that you know that they've signed a waiver in bike reg, the email address in case you need to contact the rider, and the rider's emergency phone number. All of these fields will not be importing into the template, but it's good to have these on hand in case you need them for emergencies. The simplest way to get the information into your spreadsheet is to go to number 1. Each of these little gray boxes on the spreadsheet are macro buttons. If you click on Import Bike Reg Info, number 1, it's also, you'll notice this Import UCI Start List. That's almost never used unless PCP has set up all of the rider registration into DataRide already. It's rarely done. So import bike reg info is typically the way that we do things in the US. Click on that. Notice that you want to use only the original Bike Reg download file. It's going to have the headers that you need, and the spreadsheet looks for information that are in those specific headers in order to put the data in the correct files. Here it says that a modified file can cause the import to crash. You want to contact the promoter if you need to, and continue with Bike Reg import. I do have a file saved to my folder, so I'm going to say yes. Go to the location where you have that file. I have mine in my data. This is my test import file. It's a CSV file. That's the way the information is going to come to you from Bike Reg, is in the form of a CSV. You want to choose that file. Finished importing, yay. You'll notice it's put everything into the proper columns, and I have very little to do here. A couple of items here we want to take a look at though. Over in the left hand, we have the ID name on the UCI. This is a formula. You'll see that it pulls a formula in to match the UCI ID with the name that matches with the particular ID that I have there. In this case it's Lance Haydet. You'll notice down here, Nicholas Lando is actually, that's for his ID. The ID is correct, apparently. His name is not Lando Nick, but we want to change this to Nicholas. And now it's corrected. The no code in rankings says that this rider is not ranked. There are a couple of things you need to look for, things like blank cells where there's no UCI ID. You have to have a UCI ID in order to import anyone's information. In this case, Tyler Clark has an X instead of an M. It may or may not import. I think I'll just leave it as an X and we'll see what happens. You'll notice that if a rider is ranked, their ranking has a blue shaded background cell. And if they're not ranked, NR appears in the yellow shading. This gives you a good quick check against what's there. The USA Cycling license, this number you want here so that it actually transfers over to the USA Cycling upload. The UCI ID, of course, is required in all cases for all riders so that the data ride files can be uploaded. In this case, this rider is not ranked. He has no UCI ID listed. That's something that if he doesn't have a UCI ID, it's going to need to be addressed by the PCP, or USA Cycling might be able to help you with that. The rider's age is so that you can filter up here to see that for men elite, they should be all 19 or older, and they are because this sorts them in age. So I do that as a quick reference check to make sure that nobody is a junior riding in the men elite race. This field, men, women, should all be men or women. I'm not positive that that X is going to upload correctly into data ride. The last name, this is how it imports. In this case, like Van Kempen has lowercase van and Kempen, but when it's imported to UCI, it'll use these blue shaded cells. It converts it to all uppercase and proper case for the name. The team name is something that can be changed as a rider prefers it to be changed. And except for in the case of UCI teams, this is a UCI World team. They should probably also have a UCI cyclocross team, but they can also race with their road team. The team code information, this is a field that I had importing the code for any UCI registered teams, but I don't have a download currently, so I can't fill that data in for you. The category is the rider's cyclocross category. The nation imports from the Bike Reg file, and you'll notice if it's a foreign nation, it's highlighted in yellow, like Canada and Switzerland. TBD is the nation was not saved in the Bike Reg file that I downloaded from. You can overwrite this as you verify licenses. You do need the correct nationality in the file. To begin with, before I do a sample upload, I'll change all of the TBDs to USA. If you want, you can probably change that color to something like orange to know that you've actually overwritten the formula that's there. Pit name, you'll type in on registration day. Pit license number, also on confirmation of riders. The box number is for C1 races where the PCP as of 2022 is supposed to pre-assign box numbers for all of the riders. That comes from actually this pit boxes tab, where if you know the numbers of the riders, you can just allocate them into the pit boxes. Since I don't have bib numbers assigned yet, I can't put any bib numbers over there. So you want to have the bib numbers assigned before the PCP gets this file to assign the pit boxes to the riders. Once you have the data in, go to number 2, sort, unranked, and fill the start order. It looks like it's pretty much already sorted the way it came in from Bike Reg. It was already sorted by rank. This rank that I have is taking it from the registration ranking that I pulled in, not from Bike Reg. So sort unranked riders and fill the start order. The start order is the actual order for the call-up sheet. The reason that I have this in here is because it might be different from the ranking. This is how you can kind of save the start rank that you want for everybody. Unless you click on that again, it's going to write over those numbers that you have already in there. So if I had somebody, let's say that Tyler Clark actually has rankings, I'm going to just copy this bib number here, or the UCI ID from there, and put it in here. You'll notice his name does not match the UCI ranking because it's supposed to be Nicholas Lando, but this is just for the sake of actually showing you how to put somebody in who has rankings. Say we found an error, we found his ID, and now he has rankings, so we want to make sure he's ranked where he should be, and he should actually be 433 with 433, so we're going to give him a 12.2 for a ranking so that I can sort on the sort order, and he'll now appear in the correct position for the call-ups. Okay, I'm going to undo everything that I just did. The checked column is so that you can tell whether a rider has actually checked in and confirmed, and we'll get to that for the Confirmation of Riders Day. Once you have all of the information uploaded, you have, if I just put that in there, I'm going to just change this as a 1 so that it's some other number. We're going to assume that this is his correct ID number. Then you'll go to number 3, assign the bib numbers. You can start with a starting bib number. You might want to start with 1. You might want to start with 2 because last year's returning champion is not here, or he is here and you want to put that to a specific rider. So I'm going to start with 2. I do prefer to add a bib number gap after ranked riders. This allows me to assign somebody who shows up for day of, or somebody who ends up with a ranking that I've already assigned a number to. I can give him a different number that falls within the ranked rider numbers. It's easier for the announcers to say, oh, okay, 1 through 40 are all ranked riders, and starting with 45 up, those are unranked riders. Then we fill the bib numbers. You'll see here it's gapped it up from 13 to the next 10 digit, starting with the number that I had specified. Apparently it skips 1 there also. So I've skipped bib number 1, started with number 2. My returning defending champion at this particular Continental Championships is not going to actually start first. Let's say it was Scott Funston who was first. I can change his bib number to 1 and still keep my start order in the correct start order according to the rankings rather than the bib numbers. You'll notice under this column called Order, generates a random starter order for any rider who is not ranked on the UCI points. That column changes the non-ranked orders every time you make a change to the spreadsheet. Let's say I change this bib number. I want to change these starting with 20 because I'm going to run out of bib numbers, and I'm going to change this to 21. You'll see that over here under the order column, the numbers change every time I make a change to the spreadsheet. However, the start order has not changed. So I can still hold somebody's order in there, generate random numbers for start rankings, and redo things accordingly without changing a randomly assigned, originally assigned start order. The start order does need to be different from one day to the next. That is, the random means random. It's different for both days of racing, not completely identical. You don't want to just copy and start with a spreadsheet for your second day of racing. The other thing that I need to mention is that random, again, does mean random. You're not going to be changing, say on the second day of racing, you notice number 33 is starting last. You can't just arbitrarily put him somewhere else within these ranked riders. If number 33 ends up with the last position again the second day, that's the way it is. If you happen to be using the same bib numbers for the second day of racing, at this time you can save as your Manuelite file for the second day of racing, but in this case I'll save a copy to your location of the race. This is Sunday, C2. I'm using the same bib numbers for the second day of racing as for the first day of racing. It's important to do a couple of things. Change the date, change it from the 6th to the 7th for the next day of racing. Change C1 over to C2. Still the Manuelite. Everything else is staying the same. Double check that your event and competition codes are correct. Those do change from day to day, or at least one of them does. Then back on your registration tab, again, you're using the same bib numbers. You may have one or two riders who are registered for one day but not the other. You want to make sure that those are in your data. So you might have to take a look at your bike reg file to get that information. This way you don't have to overwrite all the information for all of the riders. Sort the unranked and fill the start order again. That just gave me a whole random new order, and you can see that none of the riders are in the same order as they were for the first day of racing. It's a whole new ranking and start order. Then save that file again. Let's go back to our original file and enable the macros. Now I'm going to take a look at the pit boxes file. You'll notice that I have bib numbers 1 through 13 and 20 to 33. This is just to show you what happens when you assign the pit boxes according to what the PCP has said. He's put rider 1 here, 2 here, 3 and 4 are here. Must not have a 3 because I took that out, I'm guessing. No, number 3. So no name is shown up. This is 5. And so on. You're going to fill out this pit box so that when you go to print, I just use a Command P or Control P possibly on a Windows machine. It'll print up a spreadsheet with the area pre-selected. There are 12 pit boxes, as a C1 race is supposed to have 12 boxes. Maximum of 10 riders per box on this sheet should be sufficient. It's generally more than enough for our C1, C2 races. So you'll notice over here that it's given me the pit boxes for the first few riders according to what I've allocated. That way when I come to registration, I can tell the rider your pit box is this and confirm it with them. You want to print to whatever printer you have set up, at least 4 copies of this sheet. You need 1 for the PCP, 1 for posting, and 1 for each of your pit commissaires so that they can check quickly who is in which box. There are a few other helpful tabs in this workbook. The first one that we're going to look at is Communique. The Communique is set up for both the C1 day and the C2 day. This column F is for C1 and this column is for C2. Simply hide the column that is not needed for the particular penalty grouping. So if it's the C1 day, I want to hide column G, highlight the column, right click, and hide the column. If you need to unhide the column, select 2 columns and simply unhide. This is just an easy way for you to be able to put in a rider who has a penalty. Say, for example, we had riders contracted who failed to take the start. Our number 1 rider, Scott Funston, is one of them. He's going to be fined 50 Swiss for the first day. You can type the number of the rider in there. You can add in extra columns as necessary. If you have several riders with the same penalty, you just can continue to list those riders underneath the particular penalty. Hide any penalties that you aren't using by selecting the rows, hiding the penalties, right-click, hide. It's going to hide those rows, and there you go. Command P for print, and you'll see it has my headers with the UCI and the USA Cycling logo already in place, has my footer on it, and everything's ready to go. The call-up list has been pre-generated. It indicates whether a rider is starting or not, whether they've signed in actually. If they haven't signed in, but they are taking the start, then it'll say DNS with a question mark and still holds their place for them because they still deserve their proper assigned start position. You'll notice it also has the champion column here for whether a rider is a champion for a given year. The start list also has the champion column and the box column. It gives the rider's ranking, and it's sorted numerically automatically when you do that, update the data. The results data tab, this is where you're going to be importing your results. We'll get to that in a moment. The results sheet already is populated with the riders that we have in this race. Lapped riders is a tab that we don't really often use. It's you can experiment with it and see what's there. The USA Cycling upload tab is going to populate once you get the results in it. The next set of tabs, you don't want to hide or get rid of any of these tabs because the macros might not work properly. These are all required for the UCI data ride sheets. You'll notice that they've populated with the information that we had on the header file here for the general tab. The start list is populated to generate that start list file to upload. The results file is already pre-populated, but it's going to get the information for these riders based on the results that we enter in. The country reference, these are the only country codes that we can possibly use, are in column A. Belize, for example, is a common one that's done as BLZ on Bike Reg, but you'll notice that the UCI ID, UCI country code is BIZ for Belize. The reference, the IRM columns here are so that you know what to put into the results file IRM column, and also on this results file IRM column, this column goes directly to the results file to this column of IRM on that for those different things. So DNF for did not finish, DNS for did not start, DSQ for disqualified, lap in the singular, and these are all caps, is for a rider who has been lapped. The number of laps they are down will show up in that results sheet as well. OTL is over the time limit. This is used for stage races. It's not used in cyclocross. REL is for a rider who's been relegated, so you can have that denotated without having to put relegation under the placing of the rider. OVL, that's a track term for, in pursuits, for example, when a rider has been lapped by the other rider, competing rider. We don't use this one in cyclocross either. We use the lap. The version number is 1.0 down to 10.0. If you are generating this by hand, that's on the general tab here, you'll notice that there's a drop down, as I indicated in the earlier working with data ride classroom portion. You do need to refer to one of these. Back to the reference. The phase is only for track racing. We don't use those. The race type, for this it's all an individual race that we use the same as it's a race on time. The next portion of this workbook will focus on the actual confirmation of rider's date and the results. For the most part, you're going to be referring to Part 2, Confirmation of Riders, for this section of the workbook. It doesn't change a whole lot other than after you've confirmed with them their start order, their rank, given them their bib number, you've verified the UCI ID, their name is spelled correctly, the team name is correct, the nationality is correct, you've entered the rider's pit name, the person responsible in the pit, in this case it might be self, the pit rider license number, you can put same in there if it's the rider, person responsible, you could also put rider, and that they have a pit box number assigned. After the rider has checked in and you've given them their bib number, you'll notice any value indicates that they're checked in, the license is confirmed. You can use this field also to flag a rider for the PCB's follow-up, but it's not going to show on any other pages. The blank cell shows as DNS on the row in the call-ups. So if I have rider number 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, these are all checked in. We'll go over to the call-up list and you'll see that I have some of those riders checked in and it puts just their row number. If they've not checked in, it still has the row number that they should be on, but it has DNS with a question mark. This video focuses on how to enter the results using the template. There's a couple of things that are kind of different. Let's assume that your registration is all correct, all the rider information is right, and I have no issues. I've already gone through the registration, checked with the riders, we've generated the call-up lists and the results, and the race has happened. Now I'm going to import the data. It's quite easy if your results company is using finish links because they'll have a LIF file that they can generate for you. You can just import this as a single .lif file. You don't need to convert it or anything. The workbook does the work for you. Click on Import LIF Data. I have here in my Cross Secretary folder, I'll look for a LIF file that I have here on my computer. Here's a men's LIF file I can import. Obviously the numbers probably won't match at all. I'm going to have too many riders on it because it's just a random file that I'm importing. But this is for example purposes only, so I'll choose this file. And as you can see, the result data doesn't match the number of starters. I probably have more in my data than I have in my results. Check the data before clicking step 2. So I click on OK. You can see here I have, looks like I have 37 riders here, but on my start list for my results, you can see that I have quite a few more rows here on my data than I have actual riders entered. So either I need to recheck my data and make sure that I've transferred all the registration data over to all those workbooks, or I have too many riders listed. I have a couple riders, 25, 26, that don't have any results over here, and it shows up as NA. It says they are listed on my start list, but not in my results. They should at least be listed as DNS. Don't have any riders listed as DNS here. Let's take a look at the results data that was imported. The first column is the rider's placing, and that transfers over to the results. You'll notice the @laps here instead of a place. But on my results, it actually puts the lap in for the IRM column. It gives them a rank according to how many laps they are, and it will show the @laps here in these yellow columns. If you're manually entering the results, you would enter it only in these yellow cells here that kind of says this is where you're going to enter data. Don't enter anything in the white section of this sheet. The bib numbers that go under bib, the order is their placing across the line. Time has to be in hours, minutes, seconds, I believe. Even if it's a women's race, you're going to have to put in hours, minutes, seconds. The IRM, if you're in question, it gives you which ones you can use, DNF, DNS, LAP, or DSQ. Place is for a second column where we have also the DNFs listed as DNF, because that is what is transferred to the position column, whereas the order is the sort order on the UCI results sheet. Currently, there's nothing on that tab, so I can't actually show you what happens at this time. The column over here, gap, is going to be the same length as the number of this first table. Another reason why you might have a different number of riders in your results file than what you have in your spreadsheet is, for example, you've imported the lift file from Saturday's race and this is Sunday's race, and maybe you have one less rider in Sunday's race, or maybe you have more riders on Sunday than on Saturday and you've not updated your sheets accordingly. It's just kind of a checks and balances that you have something that's matching what the lift file shows for riders finishing. Over here in the IRM column, these riders have an NA. Let's say 25 is actually something else, like 40 is 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33 is already listed as DNF. So that actually transferred. I'm still missing a rider 22. And I know there's not a 42. Let's say that was misread and it's actually 22. Just change it there. It's going to change everything over here in this area to match what we needed. The at time, you don't have any at time for the gap for these riders who are lapped. They're just lapped. It does say here under the time how many laps they had to complete the race before they actually finished. And that information does need to be brought in. Once your results match and you know you have all your riders accounted for, this table is now the same length as this first table, and I know that I have all the times accounted for. I can click on Complete Results and create the UCI upload. That's going to ask me to save the file, and this is as the results file. It's the final results file as opposed to the one that I saved earlier that said results data check. So I'll just save that to C1, and I can do the final upload to DataRide as described under that part of the classroom. Let's take a look at what is on our results file for DataRide. You can see it's transferred all of the information over to that spreadsheet. Rider 33 does not have a rank because he's listed as DNF. Those are not ranked, but he does have a sort order here. Taking a look at the USAC upload tab, you'll notice that it's put all of the information in, and once I'm ready and I've looked everything over and I think it's correct and I have a rider license number for everyone, these ones that are blank or have international Canadian, they won't want to upload to USAC, right? It's going to ask you for, is it this rider or this rider when you go to do it, but it's quite simple. Just click on Export USAC Upload. It will create an Excel sheet, and there you have it. So we have those in our folder, and you'll see that created the CSV as a CSV. I hope you found this helpful and that you don't run into too many problems using the spreadsheet. If you do, feel free to use any other method that you can to get the secretary work done.